We all know the story. It started in 1964 with the Ford Mustang. No, wait, I mean the Plymouth Barracuda. Or the Pontiac GTO. Or was it earlier with the Pontiac Catalina SD? The 50s Dodge D500 maybe? Debating the origin of the muscle car is like debating over the first rock and roll record. Everyone you talk to has a different opinion, and no one is exactly wrong. Let's just say that by the early 60s, a generation coming of age fell in love with high-performance midsize cars coming out of Detroit, and for a few brief years, performance ruled the day. Here are top 10 60s era muscle cars that deserve to re-enter the conversation. (1964) Studebaker Avanti R3. The Avanti isn't generally counted among muscle cars, but then, Studebaker was never exactly considered a performance powerhouse to begin with. But the fiberglass Avanti had a long hood, short rear deck, and 289 cubic inch V8 a full 2 years before the Ford Mustang did. In 1964, after production officially ended, Studebaker bored out 9 V8s to 304 cubic inches, slapped a Paxton supercharger on them, and dropped them into remaining Avantis. The result was a 171 mph rocket, which the company claimed made it the fastest production car in America. This R3 was sold by Auctions America in 2010 for $96,250. With the collector market being what it is today, good luck finding one this cheap ever again. (1965) Pontiac 2+2. As far as classic muscle cars go, the 65-67 GTO is remembered to be about as big as they came. But with the success of the GTO, Pontiac wanted to take its go-fast formula to an even bigger car, which became the 65-67 2+2. Based on the full-size Catalina two-door, the 2+2 had its own unique 338 horsepower 421 cubic inch V8, and in high-output guise, power jumped to 376 ponies, which when tuned right could rocket from 0 to 60 in a mind-bending 3.9 seconds. Bigger, plusher, and often faster than its smaller stablemate, the 2+2 deserves a lot more love from speed freaks. (1964) Mercury Comet Cyclone. For 60s Ford products, the Mercury Comet was about as basic as they came. Closely based on the Ford Falcon, the 64-65 Comet could be livened up with Ford's famous 289 cubic inch V8. But for those who wanted more from their Mercurys, Ford built 50 Comet Cyclones for the drag strip, complete with fiberglass hood, fenders, doors and front bumper, plexiglass windows, and the same 425 horsepower 427 V8 found in the Chevy Cobra. In '66, Mercury introduced the production Comet GT with a 390 V8, and while they're capable compact muscle cars, they couldn't hope to match the insanity of their big block predecessor. (1968) Ford Ranchero 500. It's been long overshadowed by Chevy's iconic El Camino, but the Ford Ranchero was America's first car-based ute. And while Chevy was offering the 396 V8 in its muscle trucks, Ford upped the ante in '68 and made its restyled Ranchero available with a 335 horsepower Cobra Jet 428 V8. Unfortunately, a lack of weight over the rear wheels made the hot Rancheros a handful to drive, so very few were built with Ford's biggest motor. While it seems like every surviving El Camino happens to be an SS model, we can't remember the last time we've seen a Cobra Jet Ranchero. Come to think of it, we can't remember the last time we've seen any Ranchero. (1969) Chevy Kingswood 427. Back in the 60s, you could order virtually any option you wanted on a car, and companies would actually build it for you. So imagine you've got a growing family, and your Corvette just can't handle them. What to do? Buy a Chevy Kingswood station wagon with rally wheels, hideaway headlights, seating for 7, and the same 390 horsepower V8 found in your Vette. Only 546 buyers opted for the big V8 in '69, but a number of 427 Kingswoods spent the next decade making their mark on the drag strip. '69 Oldsmobile Rallye 350. When gearheads think of outrageous muscle cars from 1969, the Pontiac GTO Judge easily sits at the top of the list. But while the Judge has gone on to become a legend, Oldsmobile's analog, the Rallye 350, is all but forgotten. Like the Judge, at least at first, it was offered in one outrageous color, Sebring yellow, had color-matched wheels and bumpers, a spoiler, and a fiberglass hood. And compared to Olds' top dog 442, the car's 310 horsepower 350 cubic inch V8 made it significantly lighter, allowing it to scramble from 0 to 60 in 7 seconds and run the quarter mile in a respectable 15.27 seconds at 97 miles per hour. Just 3,500 Rallye 350s were built, making it one of the more obscure muscle cars to ever come from GM. 1969 Ford Torino Talladega. Half a century on, the Plymouth Roadrunner Superbird and Dodge Daytona get all the love when it comes to NASCAR homologation specials. But in 1969, Ford tried its hand at aerodynamics too and built the Torino Talladega. Starting with a Torino sports roof, Ford worked with the Holman Moody race shop to design a sleeker, longer front clip and rear fascia for the car. The Talladega was honed in the wind tunnel, a relative novelty for the era, and powered by the 429 cubic inch V8 found in the Boss Mustang. Production was over by March. Ford only built 754 of them and they were barely advertised, but the slippery cars dominated during the '69 season, winning 29 races. In 1970, however, the 200-mile-per-hour Superbird ruled NASCAR, and the Talladega's time in the spotlight was over. Today, the Talladega, and near-identical Mercury Cyclone Spoiler 2, are bargains on the collector market compared to the roof-nosed Mopars. '69 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ. The second-generation Grand Prix is largely remembered for its role in popularizing the personal luxury coupe segment, but in its early days, it was one of the hottest cars on the street. With a long hood, the longest hood of any production car in '69 in fact, and short deck, the Grand Prix was available with Pontiac's 390 horsepower 428 cubic inch V8, allowing it to scramble from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds and run the quarter mile in 15 seconds at 97 miles per hour. Its combination of luxury and power made it the Grand Prix massive hit for Pontiac. Within a few years, any semblance of performance would be gone. 1970 Chrysler Hearst 300. As early as 1970, Chrysler diehards were feeling nostalgic for the 300-letter series, which ended in 1965. The 300 series carried on, but performance had taken a back seat as mid-sized muscle cars had picked up the go-fast mantle. Chrysler tried to recapture the magic for '70 by outfitting a 300 coupe with the interior from an Imperial, a fiberglass hood and deck lid, a 375 horsepower 440 cubic inch V8, and a torque flight automatic to handle all that power. At 18.5 feet long and 4,400 pounds, the big Chrysler could still make 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds and run the quarter mile in 15.3 seconds. With just 500 built, The Hearst 300's ranked as one of the rarest Mopar muscle cars of all time. (1971) AMC SC 360 Hornet. In the 60s, AMC's red, white, and blue Rebel Machine and SC Rambler muscle cars failed to move the sales needle for America's last independent automaker, but they sure caused a scene wherever they went. For 1970, the company had introduced the compact Hornet and Gremlin to replace the Rambler, and with them came the SC 360 Hornet. With an available 285 horsepower 360 cubic inch V8 under the hood, the small Hornet could hit 60 from a standstill in 6.7 seconds, and run the quarter mile in 14.9 seconds at 97 miles per hour. But in 1970, displacement still ruled the day, and despite being cheaper than a Plymouth Duster 340, AMC found just 784 buyers for its smallest muscle car. We think it's aged remarkably well, and would like to take one of these 70s air sleepers to the drag strip.